Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good. Some more people waiting to get in. Excuse me. Deegan, camera off, bud. I'm recording, and I can't record you guys with camera on, please. Thank you. We've got a few more minutes before we start. There's still quite a few people out. There's some more. Oh, shit. I don't know where to find it. Third corner. Damn, I need enough for two. Still nobody there? There's a couple. Gavin. So somebody asked why I have to record, why am I recording these things? That's actually a good question. Let me get Brandon in here. First of all, the district has asked us to record our lectures for whatever reason. But I would do it at this point anyway because the camera is in the shop. Excuse me. And what I'm going to be doing is going over individual machines and then a couple other things. And for somebody that maybe didn't make a specific day, missed a day, I can post these on your page. I got a couple more people coming in. I want to miss them. And so that when I post it on the page, they can see the same thing you guys saw. Okay, so it's also for folks that miss a day or something like that. And plus, I mean, you never know, man. Maybe somebody with a lot of money will see one of these videos I do on a tool and want to pay me tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to make tool videos. I'm guessing not, because I'm not any good at it, but you never know. Maybe there's some looking for somebody really crappy at promoting machine safety, and I'd be just the perfect person for it. So we got a little bit more. I'm going to wait just a little longer. Here's Cantola to make sure we get as many people in here as possible. So we got another one, Macy. Once again, you guys be sure and let me know if for some reason you show up as absent on the roll for the day or something like that. Let me know so I can change it, all right? Because this is actually, contrary to what you may think right off the bat, this is a really, really full class. I mean, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's like almost 30 students in here. And I can barely count that high, much less keep track of 30 different students. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. People show up, and we'll get going. As usual, especially now that we're starting the machine tools in the shop, I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to ask questions. Excuse me. If you don't understand something, ask a question, because if you don't understand it, I guarantee there's somebody else out there in cyber world or whatever you call it that doesn't understand as well. So there's absolutely nothing wrong and everything right with asking questions, okay? If I spot them in the chat, I'll answer them as soon as I can, but the way I'm doing this, I'm a little distance away from the laptop, so I can't really see them too well. So we're getting there. Missing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let me give it just another minute here, and we'll get going. I think we probably have just about all of them, but there's always somebody that wanders in about 5 or 10 minutes out after everything. Okay. So while we're waiting for those last few people, I'm going to do a couple things in preparation here that I forgot to do. Really difficult. Well, I can start for you guys, kind of get you going a little bit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the jointer, all right? And the jointer is, why is Sam's camera coming up and not mine? That's the weirdest thing. There we go. That's what I want. All right, so that's what you should be looking at on the screen. If you don't see a big gold and steel looking jointer sitting there on the screen, tell me, because there's something wrong, but I think it's doing all right. Okay, there's somebody coming in late. So we're going to go over the jointer day, and there's a couple reasons why the jointer's first is because, but the main reason is that the jointer is the first machine you guys would use here in the shop if you're trying to get something ready for use in a piece of furniture. Now, that being said, not always. In fact, pretty much anything I tell you guys in here, there's always a, well, in some case, or not always, or there's an exception, or you never really know. In woodworking, there's always exceptions, okay? But when working with solid stock, okay, pine, alder, poplar, cherry, maple, oak, things like that. Okay, when we work with solid stock, in other words, not sheet goods, not manufactured material. If you guys have ever driven down to Medford and gone by Rogue River and seen that mill right off the side of the freeway with all those stacks and stacks and stacks of really thin material sitting out there, that is the precursor or what is used to make plywood, okay? So that's manufactured material. It's still real wood. We just don't call it solid stock. We call it sheet goods or plywood. So there's some machines in here that we don't use with sheet goods. We use only with solid stock. The jointer is one of those machines. Another one is a planer. Another one's the drum sander. That's kind of about it, I think. Those three machines mainly we don't use sheet goods on, only solid stock. And there are reasons for that, okay? One of the reasons is that when we buy solid stock, pine, alder, maple, cherry, oak, it comes rough, okay? It can have very rough surfaces, rough edges, rough ends, things like that. And it comes, kind of varies in thickness. Usually what we get is 15/16 of an inch thick, or what's called 4/4 lumber. 4/4 lumber is basically supposed to be an inch thick. There's 4/4 inches in an inch, 4/4. So 3/4 lumber would be 3/4 of an inch thick. 2/4 lumber would be 1/2 an inch thick. 5/4 lumber would be 1 1/4 inches thick. 6/4 lumber, 1 1/2. 8/4 lumber, 2 inches thick. So you can buy it in all these different varying thicknesses. But for the most part, and especially as far as you guys are concerned in beginning woods, the thickness you need your solid stock to be for use in the project is 3/4 of an inch. So all the material that we have here, all the solid stock, has to be machined down to 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now that's solid stock. Sheet goods don't have to. We can buy sheet goods any thickness we want, from an 1/8 inch thick, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch thick, you name it, we can buy it in those thicknesses. Okay, so we don't have to thickness it. There's no point. Also, sheet goods already come with 2 flat parallel faces. In other words, this is a piece of particle board right here, okay? So it's got a really flat face right there. It's got a really flat face right there. And they're parallel to each other, which means that no matter where I measure the thickness, it's going to be the same, all right? So we don't need a jointer. We don't need a planer when it comes to sheet goods. So we don't use sheet goods on our jointer, on our planer, or on our drum sander. As we move through the quarter here, I'll show you other examples of why we don't put sheet goods through those machines. So this jointer is really only for solid stock, solid wood. All right, hopefully you guys are with me so far. All right, so the main purpose of a jointer is to flatten, straighten, and square a board. As far as you're concerned in beginning, its main purpose is to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. That is the definition of a joining operation. In other words, I want a nice, flat, let me get over here where you can see it, a nice, flat, straight, square edge on a board. When I say square, I mean 90 degrees, right? Okay. So the jointer can also flatten the face of a board in preparation to going to the planer to flatten the opposite face and get it down to a consistent thickness. But for you guys in beginning, the only thing you'd have to worry about is using this to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board, okay? So that's gonna be its function. In order for that to happen, in order for you to be able to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board, you have to have one flat face, okay? I have to have a flat face to put against the fence in the joiner, all right? So let's talk about the parts of a joiner here real quick before I get too far ahead of myself, okay? That's an in-feed table. That's the out-feed table. Your material goes this direction, from in-feed to out-feed, okay? This right here is the fence, okay? This is our cutter head guard, or just a guard, and underneath it is the cutter head, okay? Both these tables are adjustable, as is the fence, okay? The cutter head is static. You cannot adjust the cutter head. Now let's talk a little bit about how a joiner works and why it is set up the way it's set up. All right, so we'll get zoomed in here. All right. So here's how this guy works. Inside here, underneath this red cover, is a cutter head, okay? This happens to be an 8-inch helical head joiner. And what that means by helical head is that means that all these individual guys here are knives, okay? Used to be in a standard joiner that there were maybe 3 or 4 straight knives. There was one knife that went here like this, and then there was maybe 3 knives mounted in the whole cutter head. This has 54 individual solid carbide nut cutters, all right? And the nice thing about that is there's a couple things that are very nice about it. For one, okay, these little guys right here have 4 sharp edges. So if something happens and one of these blades, one of these edges gets a nick in it, or if they just get dull, all we have to do is loosen this little screw right here, rotate that knife 90 degrees, and we've got a fresh edge. And as a matter of fact, during third period, we realized in joining one of these boards that we've got a nicked knife back here. We're gonna have to change, rotate a little bit, okay? So that's the cutter head itself. That's what's doing all the business. That's the business end of the thing. So here's how this works. Since this bed is adjustable up and down, the in-feed bed is adjustable up and down, okay? Here's how you set a joiner. So I'm gonna take this flat edge on this square here, okay? I'm gonna set it right there. Now, you guys see the gap right here? This is the in-feed table, right? And it's flat on the out-feed table. Now I'm gonna rotate this cutter head a little bit. I don't know if you can hear this, but see if you can hear this. You guys hear that little scraping sound? Here, Gerardo's late. Let me get him in. That little scraping sound is the knife touching the bottom of that square, okay? So basically the way this is set, I got something in my eye. You have to hold on a second. The way this is set is so that the outfeed table is level or even with that cutter head when that cutter head is at the very top of its rotation. All right? Now, this gap right here between this square and the in-feed table, okay, is the depth of cut. I can raise this. I can't, I got it locked. I'm not gonna do it right now. I can raise it or lower it and adjust how much material is taken off with each pass. We have this set right now between 1/16 of an 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that's how much material it's gonna remove with each pass, every time you send a board through the joiner, okay? Now the other important thing about these joiners is that if we want to somehow create, let me mark it so you can see it, a really nice 90-degree angle right there. Oh, come back here. If we want to create, you guys can't see that, a nice 90-degree angle right there. Okay, let me zoom this out a little bit. Okay, so we want to put a nice 90-degree angle on that corner. That means that this face right here has to be flat, and this fence has to be 90 degrees to the tables. If the fence isn't 90 degrees to the tables, if it's angled like this, we're not going to get a 90-degree edge. Okay, so this fence is adjustable as well, in and out, and also the angle of it is adjustable. So we generally check this pretty often to make sure that our fence is 90 degrees to our table, because if it's not going to do the job we want it to do. All right. So the first thing we have to do is joint one face. All right. You guys in beginning would not have to do that. The material you would be handed would already been thicknessed, which means one face was jointed, the other face was planed, and take it down to its final thickness. So you wouldn't have to do that, but you might as well see it here. So the first thing we have to do is joint one face. Now, all of your senses are important here in the shop. Obviously, your sense of sight, your visual, your sense of touch, though, your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, all of these things are important when you're running machines. On the joiner, for example, it's really important to listen to the machine and hear the sound it's making. All right. You can also feel with your fingertips or with the pad on it how much pressure it's taking to feed a board through the cutter head. Okay, if it's taking less pressure, then that means the cutter head's removing less material. If it's taking more pressure, that means the cutter head's removing more material, or you're pushing a board that's generally harder through the machine. For example, pine compared to hard maple, right? You'd never use pine for a cutting board, but you certainly would use hard maple for a cutting board. So the density and hardness of material helps to determine the rate at which you can feed it through a machine. So here we go. Let's go ahead, and we've got that word on there. Let's go ahead and mark it up a little more so you can see it. And I want you guys to listen to the machine. You should be able to hear it. Okay. Now, it shouldn't do much on the face, so you can see it, but it should on the other side. On the joiner, there's a few rules of thumb. Number one, your board must be at least 12 inches long to put it through the joiner. All right, we're sitting at a little over 19 and a half. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm just curious how many guys can read a tape measure. Okay, so just a little bit over 19 and a half inches long, so we're good there, right? If we were trying to put this board through it, no go. This thing's about 11 and a quarter long. It's too short for the joiner, okay? No sheet goods on the joiner. We don't run sheet goods, only solid stock through the joiner. And you will always, always, always use push pads on the joiner, okay? So let's join a face. I want you guys to listen to the machine, all right? Okay, so I don't know if you can tell with this camera, but let me turn it a little way. There's still a tiny little bit of pencil marks on there. You can kind of see them like right in here and stuff. I'm trying to turn it so you can see, but you can see the slightest pencil marks on there. But that's pretty good. We've got a pretty flat surface there now, okay? So now we can take that flat surface, we can put the flat surface against the fence, and we can start to joint this edge, okay? That's the corner that we want to be 90 degrees is the corner between this surface and this surface, okay? Now, I know you couldn't really hear it then, but I want you to listen very, very, very carefully to jointing the edge, okay? So we have, let's get some pencil marks on here. Man, this is a messed up edge. And I want you to see if you can tell when the cutter head is in contact with the board and when it's not. I also want you to kind of pay attention to the rate at which I push the material through the cutter. This edge is going to be a little quicker, okay? There's a lot more surface area to cut on the face than there's the edge, so you can't feed it as fast. All right, I want you to listen to this and see if you can tell when it's cutting and when it's not cutting. That's why this is so important. Usually you can tell when a board's done, when the edge of a board has been jointed and it's complete, by the sound it makes, okay? So, here we go. You guys hear that? It struck it. It struck it at the leading edge and at the trailing edge. You can actually see that in the pencil marks, right? You can see where it's, geez, this light is terrible. I don't know if you can see the pencil marks or not, but you can see where it cut, then the pencil marks stop again. Okay, and there was a cutting again. So it's going to take more than one pass to joint the edge of this board. So let's do it again. Listen very carefully and see if you can tell. Okay, that's a little further. You can kind of see there's just about from here to here left. So make another pass. A little more left to go. There's just a little bit left right in there. Hopefully you heard that. Nice consistent sound along the entire length of the board. Okay, so there's our board. There's our jointed edge. It's done. We knew it by the sound and by how it felt. This was our face that we jointed. This is the edge we just jointed. So what we should have, when we take a square, we should have a perfect 90-degree face to edge all the way along the length of the board. We should not be able to see any light under the edge of that square anywhere. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. All right, so that's jointing a board. This class started at what time? 1:30, huh? Yeah, 1:30. Okay, so that's joining the edge of a board. Okay, so a couple other things. So we've talked a little bit about solid stock as opposed to sheet goods and things like that. But let's talk a little bit about dimensions. All right, so I've neglected to get a piece ready, but I can do that real quick. Okay, give me 1 second. And you can probably hear it, but you won't be able to see it because I don't have the camera over there. But this, the miter saw. Let's go over here and cut a little bit off. Real quick. Bit of that. I don't have a box here. All right, there's that. Okay. So what I'm trying to do, I want to go over something with you guys here before I forget. Because as you get up in age, you tend to forget things. All right. So let me get the camera so you can see this. Okay, just take a second. We'll go, whoop, wrong way. Okay. Come over here. I'm going to come up a little bit. All right. So let's talk about dimensions. and terminology, things like that, okay? So, you guys hopefully can see the grain direction in this board. It's going this way, right? Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if you can see, you might be able to see it in that one a little bit too. So the grain direction is going this way, right? So would you say because of the grain direction that that would be the length of the board? In other words, would you say that length is measured with the grain? You think? Okay, I got a couple yeses there. All right, that's good. Okay. So you just said the length was with the grain. What direction is the grain going on this board? Okay, there is no grain, all right? In fact, a lot of the materials we use in here, and I left a piece over there, have no grain. Good example is MDF, particle board, melamine, things like that. All these sheet goods that don't have a decent face to them. Okay, so you can't go by grain direction, okay? Not always, right? There's that sometimes but not always thing again, okay? So the question here would be, hopefully you guys can see the grain direction in this board, right? So you would say, by your previous statements, and I probably would have agreed at the same time, that that would be the length of the board, right? If you're going by grain direction. But it's not, okay? This is the length of the board, okay? There's a real difference between, I'm trying to remember the term I use here. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but there's a reason this length matters. And let me show you on the joiner. Okay, we'll go back to call back. We'll go back to joiner. Okay, so the minimum length on the joiner is 12 inches. Okay, we've established that, which means that this guy right here, I forgot the camera moved. This guy here is not long enough. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Okay, we do have a bit of a problem though. If I can find a piece. Yep, here we go. $27, $26. All right, so here's the problem. I know this is sheet goods. Please ignore that it's sheet goods. Just imagine it's solid material. Okay, here's part of our problem. This board is 27 by 25 3/4. Okay, so this 27-inch dimension is our length. Okay, one of the things that we do not do in the wood shop, ever, we don't do it. Okay, so this is our short dimension. This is our width. This is 25 3/4. This is 27. Okay, one thing we never do in the shop is put the short edge against the fence. And I'll show you, I mean, this will make a little more sense. Okay, so this piece of cherry right here is just a hair under 17 inches long. Okay, great. We can run it just like that. It's 17 inches long. We have at least 12 inches in contact with the bed and the fence. Okay. Somebody got left out. All right. This, for more than one reason, is a very bad scenario. This is what we do not do. So that's why length versus width matters, not so much grain direction. Now, on a joiner, grain direction really does matter, because if I tried to do this, the chances are that when this board exits, it's going to take a chunk of material out of this back corner right here. You guys want to see if it does it? Do something we're not supposed to do and see if it does it. All right, let's find out. Okay, so let's see if it's going to tear out on its way out. We're never supposed to joint in grain. Let's see why. Little bit, not bad. That wasn't bad at all. You can see the chunk out of the corner. Oftentimes, it'll take a huge piece off, okay? But this isn't bad at all. But in grain will usually do that when the blade exits the board. And we'll talk about that a little more when it comes to using the drill press. Drill press is notorious for tearing out when something exits, blowing out. So I've been all over the place this class period, but let me try and recap what the most important aspects of this are. Okay? Main function of the joiner is to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. That's what you guys care about in the beginning. If you're in intermediate or advanced, it's got two major functions: to flatten the face of a board, then to flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. But any boards you would be handed in beginning woods would already be surfaced, would already be planed, they'd already be thicknessed. So you'd already have two flat, nice, parallel faces, okay? Remember? Face, face, edge, edge, end, end, okay? That's what I was trying to remember to tell you guys, okay? So this matters. So off on another tangent here. So this is face, this is a face, this is an edge, this is an edge, this is an end, this is an end, okay? You guys accept that, okay? Somebody else, I think people are getting bumped. Okay, now, can you guys see the grain in this board? Okay, and then the end, right? So this is face grain, this is face grain, this is edge grain, this is edge grain, this is end grain, and this is end grain, okay? So, here's a board. That's its length if we ignore grain, okay? So that's a face, that's a face, that's an edge, that's an edge, that's an end, and that's an end. If we're going by dimensions alone, what the longest distance is, okay, if we're going by dimensions alone, face, face, edge, edge, end, end, okay? The problem is with this board, the way the grain's running, okay, this is face grain, certainly this is face grain, but this is end grain. Hopefully you can see that, right? And this is end grain, and this is edge grain and edge grain, okay? When we say face, face, edge, edge, end, end, we're solely talking about dimensions. That's it, the length, the width, the thickness. That's all we care about, okay? But when we talk about grain direction, okay, we're talking about the physical characteristics of this board, and more importantly, how these different surfaces are going to react to a cutter, okay? For example, on the router table, really good example, okay? If I'm gonna route this end grain right here, and if I go this way, then when that bit reaches here, there's a very good chance it's gonna catch that end grain and take a big chunk out, just like we showed you on the joiner. Let's see if it'll do it on a different piece. Oak's notorious for tearing out like that. Let's see if we can put a piece of oak through it on the end grain, and let's see what happens. Oh, I don't have any wide stuff. Well, this will have to do. Okay, so this is something you would never do, but I want to see if it's going to tear out on this oak. Oak's pretty notorious for this. Took a little more off. You can see what it did to the end of the board, right? Okay, so grain direction matters because of the way different grain directions interact with cutters. It's that simple, okay? So grain matters. Thickness, width, and length, we're talking about dimensions. Okay, so main function of the joiner: flatten, straighten, and square the edge of a board. Minimum 12-inch length. You will always use push pads on the joiner, okay? Always, always. All right. jointing long boards. All right, there's definitely a specific technique to jointing longer boards. All right, so we'll use this piece of oak for the heck of it. Okay, what we want to do when joining longer boards is we're going to get the board onto the outfeed table, and as we keep going, all our pressure is going to be on the outfeed table. We're going to walk our pads like this. We don't want to keep all the pressure on both tables. You'll see what I mean when you see the board go through here. So when I finally get onto the outfeed table with my second pad, just like that, okay? So you're gonna walk it through. All right, what have I forgotten about the joiner? Probably more than I ever knew, but all right, so that's the joiner, okay? Tomorrow we're gonna go over the table saw, and that's a very involved machine, but we'll try and make it as simple as possible. But what I want to start doing at the end of the week is this. I'm going to move this over. Now, if you guys were actually here, your required project for the semester would be one of these single drawer nightstands. Okay, now these don't have the drawers in them. These are nightstands that students left, didn't take home, but you kind of get the picture. There'd be a drawer in that upper section. Okay, so here's the deal on this nightstand. It consists of the following. Okay, it's got a carcass, which is the main structure of it, the two sides, the back, the shelves. This piece here, it's a posing piece. There's a back in there, and then this lower shelf and this mid shelf are all particle board, okay? And we paint those pieces that are gonna be seen. So these two sides would get painted, and the large opening here would get painted. We don't have to paint in here because you're not gonna see it because of a drawer, okay? So the back, the two sides, and the shelves are made out of particle board. The rest of it's made out of solid stock, and it would be your choice of pine, poplar, alder, maple, oak, cherry, okay? So we cover up the ugly edges of this particle board with solid stock, okay? So the face frame consists of two vertical side rails and then a top, stiles, vertical stiles, then a top rail, a mid rail, and a bottom rail that's got a decorative cut out of it. The same thing on the sides. There's two vertical stiles on the sides, two rails. Then there's a solid top and a solid drawer front. And then the drawer itself is made out of particle board. So what I think I'm gonna do, because you guys are gonna get really tired of me just kind of walking around using the machine for no reason. At the end of the week, what I'd like to start doing is going through the build of a nightstand from beginning to end. So you guys can see one of these being built, and maybe it'll be more fun than watching me join a board all day. Somebody asked, what's the longest piece that we can run through the joiner? That's determined more by how unwieldy long pieces are. If we had a piece longer than about 8 feet, I'd find another way to joint the edge. And even that, if it's maple and it's thick, that's gonna be hard to handle on a joiner like this. You know, normally about the longest stuff we run through here, with any regularity, is 24 to 36 inches, 2 to 3 feet long. We generally don't have to joint much longer than that, although there are some things like, let's see here, I don't know if you can see it, but we'll take a look. That's the wrong way. There's a cabinet over here that is left from last semester that the student hasn't finished. Hopefully he can come back next semester and finish it. And okay, but this has 4 very long legs. Okay, There's the top of the leg. All right. So these are what? These are going to be 5-foot long legs, right? Go down to the bottom. Okay, these are good 5-foot long legs. So, you know, 6 foot, he had to get 5.5, 6 feet through this thing. I don't know if he has this set yet, but this has a trap door or a trick cabinet that once you open the cabinet door, and I don't know if it's working or what, and it won't open without getting behind a little hidden latch and reach inside, and then it locks in place. And it's supposed to look like part of this. There it is, just popped open. It's kind of neat. Pretty involved little project. Nice cabinet. But yeah, so that's about the longest length. We don't like to get stuff more than 6 or 8 feet long through that. So, so that's the joiner. Tomorrow I'll go over the table saw. That should give me time to get the stuff ready to start a nightstand, okay? We'll also take a little bit of time one day and we'll do a little design on the drawer front or part of the face frame on the CNC, so you guys can see what that does. We'll also do something on, say, the top of the drawer front that is customized on the laser, the CO2 laser, so you guys can kind of see what that's like. Because during the beginning class, assuming you are caught up and not behind, you have the ability to go and do some custom work on the CNC or on the laser on your nightstand too. We do not use hand Dremels for the simple fact that we have a CNC and we have a laser. We do have, or we're supposed to have a Dremel here, but we use it mainly for guitar work. We have some special mounts for the Dremels that allow us to do binding work and things like that, and bridge work on guitars. So we don't really use Dremels much. We were supposed to have just gotten a brand new one not long ago. That reminds me, I need to ask where it is. Okay. But yeah, so hopefully it'll get a little better once we start going through a nightstand being built. That would be nice. And I think, let me make sure there's nothing I'm missing here. Okay, let me zoom back out of this thing a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of it. That's my head. You don't want to see that. Okay, if you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions. All right. Other than that, I'm glad you guys made it. I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. But stick around and ask questions if you want. I'll be here till the end. Okay? Take care of yourselves, folks.